The first time Sarah met Alina, it felt like fate. Sarah had just turned 19, fresh into her second semester of university. She was the kind of girl people noticed for her quiet charm rather than loud presence, soft brown eyes always carrying a notebook and usually lost in her own thoughts. Alina, on the other hand, was everything Sarah wasn't: loud, daring, effortlessly social. When Alina had slid into the empty seat beside Sarah during a lecture on that unusually cold morning in January, their differences had seemed like the perfect balance. "Do you mind if I sit here? Everywhere else looks occupied," Alina had said, tossing her long black hair over her shoulder, her tone casual, but her smile friendly. Sarah had smiled back, a little shy. "Of course, go ahead." By the end of that lecture, Sarah had laughed more than she had in weeks. Alina had a way of pulling people out of their shells. And by the end of that day, the two girls had exchanged numbers. Within a week, they were inseparable. For 2 years, Sarah trusted Alina with everything. They studied together, shopped together, and spent late nights whispering secrets no one else knew. Sarah had always been cautious about who she trusted, but with Alina she felt safe. She told her about her parents' constant fights, about her fear of being too boring for people to like her, about her dreams of one day becoming a writer. But the most important secret she shared was about her boyfriend, Ahmed. Sarah had met Ahmed at a university event. He was tall, broad-shouldered, with an easy smile that seemed to soften even her guarded heart. Ahmed was kind, patient, and had a way of listening that made Sarah feel truly seen. She fell for him faster than she expected, and when they officially started dating, she told Alina first. Alina had squealed, hugging her tightly. "Sarah, finally! I was wondering when you'd stop living like a nun. Show me his pictures." From that moment, Alina became a part of their relationship, at least indirectly. Whenever Sarah had doubts, she turned to Alina. Whenever Ahmed surprised her with something sweet, Alina was the first to know. Slowly, without realizing it, Sarah had handed Alina the map to her heart, and Alina, smiling all the while, was studying every corner of it. The cracks started small. Sarah didn't notice them at first. One evening, as Sarah and Alina sat in a cafe sipping coffee after class, Alina leaned back and smirked. "You know, Ahmed's really charming, like dangerously charming." Sarah laughed, brushing it off. "He's my boyfriend, Alina. Don't start." "I'm just saying," Alina replied, stirring her coffee lazily. "You better hold on to him tight. Girls would kill to be in your shoes." It had sounded like a compliment, but something about the way Alina said it lingered in Sarah's mind. She shook it off. That was just Alina. Playful, dramatic, always exaggerating. Then came the little things. Alina insisting on tagging along. Whenever Sarah met Ahmed after class, Alina teasing him more than she teased anyone else, Alina's laughter a little too loud at his jokes. But whenever Sarah questioned it, Alina would roll her eyes. "Relax, Sarah. I'm your best friend. You think I'd ever cross that line?" Sarah had believed her. It was the beginning of summer when things began to unravel. Sarah and Ahmed had planned a small get-together at his apartment with a few friends. Alina was, of course, invited. The night was fun at first. Music, laughter, everyone lounging around with pizza and soda. But Sarah couldn't ignore how often Alina leaned too close to Ahmed, whispering something that made him chuckle, or how her hand lingered on his arm just a second longer than necessary. At one point, when Sarah had gone to the kitchen to grab more snacks, she returned to find Alina sitting in her seat beside Ahmed. They were laughing about something, heads tilted too close. Sarah froze for a moment, a cold weight settling in her stomach. When Alina noticed her standing there, she quickly slid aside. "Oh, sorry, I was just keeping your seat warm." Her smile was innocent, her tone light. But Sarah's heart was no. longer at ease. That night, after everyone left, Sarah asked Ahmed, "Did you notice how friendly Alina was being?" Ahmed frowned slightly. "She's always like that, isn't she?" "Don't worry, Sarah. You know I only have eyes for you." And she believed him. She wanted to believe him. The betrayal came quietly at first, like a whisper that turned into a storm. It began with rumors. Sarah noticed people whispering in the corridors, glancing at her, then looking away. A classmate, someone she barely knew, asked her bluntly one day, "Hey, is it true Ahmed's been seeing someone else?" Sarah had felt her stomach drop. "What? No. Who told you that?" The girl shrugged. "I just heard it. People are saying he's been getting close to Alina." The name hit her like a slap. At first, Sarah refused to believe it. This was Alina, her best friend, her sister in all but blood. The idea was unthinkable, yet doubts began to creep in. Every memory, every small crack she had ignored came rushing back with sharper edges. She confronted Alina that night. They were in Sarah's room, the air tense. "Alina," Sarah began, her voice unsteady. "People are saying, you and Ahmed." Alina's eyes widened, and then she laughed. "Seriously? Sarah, do you even hear yourself? People are jealous of us, that's all. They want to see us fight." "But why you? Why would they say that about you?" "Because I'm close to you. Because they know it'll hurt the most. Come on, Sarah, don't tell me you're doubting me." Alina's voice was soft, almost hurt. Sarah felt guilt twist in her chest. Maybe she was overthinking. Maybe it was all lies. She hugged Alina, whispering, "I'm sorry. I don't want to lose either of you." Alina's smile, unseen in that embrace, was cold. But the truth has a way of revealing itself. 2 weeks later, Sarah received a message from an unknown number. It was a photo, grainy, taken from what looked like a distance, but clear enough. Ahmed and Alina sitting together in a cafe, his hand on hers, her leaning close, smiling in a way that wasn't meant for friendship. The world around Sarah seemed to collapse. She stared at the photo until her vision blurred with tears. Her chest felt heavy, her breathing shallow. She wanted to scream, to cry, to demand answers, but all she could do was sit in silence, the betrayal sinking into her bones. When she finally gathered the courage to confront Ahmed, his face paled. "It's not what it looks like," he stammered. "Then what is it?" Sarah demanded, her voice breaking. "Tell me what I'm looking at, Ahmed." He had no answer. The silence between them was louder than any confession, and in that silence, Sarah knew. She had lost not just her boyfriend, but her best friend, too. The whispers at university grew louder after that. Sarah could feel the weight of every glance, every smirk. People whispered about how naive she had been, how Alina had won, how Ahmed had upgraded. But the worst part wasn't the rumors, or even Ahmed's betrayal. It was Alina's smile, bright and unbothered, as she walked into class hand in hand with Ahmed. And in that moment, Sarah realized the cruelest betrayals don't come from enemies. They come from the ones you trust with your deepest secrets. The morning after the truth came crashing down, Sarah couldn't bring herself to leave her bed. Her phone buzzed endlessly, friends checking in, classmates gossiping, even Ahmed sending desperate messages she couldn't bear to read. Each vibration felt like another stone on her chest, heavier and heavier until she wanted nothing more than silence. But silence wasn't something the world offered her anymore. When she finally gathered enough courage to return to campus, the air felt poisoned. Conversations halted when she entered a room. Laughter followed her in hallways. A group of girls whispered loudly enough for her to hear. She really thought he'd stay with her? Honestly, what did she expect? Alina's gorgeous, and Sarah's just plain. Best friend, though. That's cold. Sarah forced herself to keep walking, her hands trembling as she clutched her books tighter. She told herself to be strong, that they were just words. But each comment sank deep, reopening the wound until she thought she would bleed out from the inside. Alina, on the other hand, was thriving. She walked through campus like a queen, her hand looped through Ahmed's as if parading her victory. Her laugh rang louder, her outfits brighter. Wherever she went, eyes followed, not with judgment, but with admiration. Somehow, she had spun the story in her favor. Sarah found out how during a group project meeting, as she sat at the library table, two classmates sat across from her, whispering. One of them, a boy she barely knew, finally spoke up. "Hey, Sarah, is it true you weren't serious about Ahmed? That you told Alina you didn't care if he flirted with other girls?" Sarah blinked, stunned. "What? I never said that." The boy shrugged. "Well, that's what Alina told people, that you didn't value him, and she just stepped in." It felt like someone had ripped the ground from under her. Not only had Alina stolen Ahmed, but now she was rewriting the story, painting Sarah as careless, indifferent, unworthy. And people were believing her. That night, Sarah couldn't stop shaking. She sat on her bed, her notebook open, pen in hand, but the words wouldn't come. Writing had always been her refuge, the place she escaped, to when life became unbearable. But now, even her thoughts felt poisoned by Alina's voice. "You better hold on to him tight. Relax, Sarah. I'm your best friend. You think I'd ever cross that line?" Lies. All of it. Her phone buzzed again. This time, it was Ahmed. "Ahmed. Sarah, please, can we talk? It's not what you think." "Ahmed. Alina was just there when we fought. I didn't mean for it to happen this way." "Ahmed. You know I still care about you." Sarah threw her phone onto the bed, her chest burning. Still care? As if that mattered after he had humiliated her in front of everyone. As if still caring excused holding another girl's hand, the girl who was supposed to be her sister. Her tears blurred the ceiling light as she whispered to herself, "Why wasn't I enough?" The days blurred into weeks. Sarah kept her distance from both of them, but it was impossible to escape completely. They were everywhere, in the cafeteria, in her classes, laughing at events she used to attend. The hardest moment came during a literature lecture. Sarah sat quietly in the back, trying to focus, when the professor asked a question. "Who can give me an example of betrayal in modern literature?" Alina raised her hand, her tone dripping with amusement. "Isn't betrayal usually when someone close to you turns out to be fake? Like when people pretend to be your friend but secretly want your life?" A ripple of laughter spread through the room. Sarah felt her throat close. She wanted to scream, to demand how Alina could twist the knife so openly, but all she could do was sit there, fists clenched under the desk, swallowing the humiliation. But betrayal has layers, and Alina wasn't done. One afternoon, as Sarah sat alone in the campus garden, Alina appeared, her smile as sweet as ever. "Hey, stranger," Alina said, dropping onto the bench beside her as if nothing had changed. Sarah stiffened. "What do you want?" Alina tilted her head, feigning innocence. "What do you mean? You're my best friend. I miss you." Sarah's laugh was bitter. "Best friend? You took my boyfriend, Alina. You destroyed everything." Alina sighed dramatically. "Oh, Sarah, you make it sound so cruel. I didn't take him. Ahmed made his choice. Can you really blame me for being the one he wanted?" Her words cut deeper than any knife. "And besides," Alina continued, leaning closer, "you should thank me. At least it was me. Imagine if some random girl had stolen him. You'd never have seen it coming. This way it stays in the family." Sarah recoiled, her stomach churning. "You're sick." Alina's smile sharpened. "Or maybe I'm just smarter. You were too naive, Sarah. You handed me every secret, every insecurity, every detail about your relationship. What did you think was going to do with all that information? Frame it and hang it on my wall? Sarah's hands trembled as her eyes filled with tears. Alina stood, brushing invisible dust from her skirt. Don't hate me, Sarah. I only did what you were too weak to do. Fight for what you want. That's why I always win. And with that, she walked away, her perfume lingering like poison in the air. That night, Sarah broke. She sat on her floor, surrounded by crumpled papers and empty coffee mugs, her notebook open to a page smeared with tears. She wrote furiously, pouring every ounce of pain onto the paper, words scratching across the page like screams. You stole my trust. You stole my love. You stole me. The more she wrote, the more her hands shook. She didn't recognize herself anymore. The confident student who once dreamed of being a writer felt like a stranger. All she saw now was a broken girl people laughed at, a fool whose secrets had been weaponized. Her phone buzzed again. This time it wasn't Ahmed. It was her cousin, Hira. Hira. Sarah, I don't know if you've seen, but Alina posted a picture with Ahmed. She tagged you in it. Sarah's blood ran cold. She opened her social media and saw it. A photo of Alina kissing Ahmed on the cheek, captioned, "Some friendships are fake. Love isn't. Moving on. Us better together." And there, tagged like a scarlet letter for everyone to see, was Sarah. The comments were brutal. Poor Sarah. Guess she couldn't keep him. Upgrade. Didn't see that coming from your bestie. Sarah dropped her phone, her chest heaving. It wasn't enough that Alina had stolen Ahmed. Now she wanted to humiliate her publicly, to brand her as the loser in their twisted game. The following week, Sarah stopped going to class. She ignored calls, avoided friends, and locked herself away from the world. But Alina wasn't satisfied with silence. She thrived on Sarah's suffering, and she wanted everyone to see it. Rumors spread faster now, uglier ones. That Sarah had been too cold in her relationship. That she had confided in Alina about being insecure, and Alina had only helped Ahmed find happiness. That Sarah had begged Ahmed to stay, but he had chosen Alina out of pity. Sarah's name was no longer hers. It was a punchline. And for the first time, Sarah wondered if she would ever recover. But heartbreak has a strange way of transforming pain into resolve. One evening, as she sat staring at the glow of her laptop, she stumbled upon an old essay she had written, an essay about resilience, about how characters in literature survived betrayal and rebuilt themselves. Her own words stared back at her like a lifeline. Betrayal does not end a story. It begins a new chapter. For the first time in weeks, Sarah felt a flicker of something other than despair. It was anger. It was strength, and it whispered a promise. Alina hadn't won. Not yet. The first time Sarah saw her reflection after weeks of hiding, she barely recognized herself. Her once bright eyes were dim, her hair unkempt, her face hollow from sleepless nights. For days, she had been drowning in the aftermath of Alina's betrayal, rumors, humiliation, the loss of the two people she trusted most. But now, standing in front of the mirror, something shifted. She whispered to herself, voice trembling but firm, "You're not broken, you're bruised. There's a difference." And with that, Sarah decided she wouldn't let Alina's victory define her. Her first step was small. She returned to class. The whispers started the moment she walked in, sharp as needles pricking her skin. Alina sat in the front row, hand in hand with Ahmed, her smile tauntingly wide. Sarah felt her chest tighten, but instead of crumbling, she lifted her chin. When the professor asked for volunteers to present, Sarah raised her hand. She stood at the podium, her voice shaky at first but gaining strength as she spoke. Her presentation was on betrayal in literature, a cruel irony. But she embraced it. In stories, she said, her eyes scanning the room, betrayal often feels like an ending. But it's not. It's a test. A betrayal doesn't define the person betrayed. It reveals the strength they didn't know they had. The hero isn't the one who never suffers betrayal. It's the one who survives it. The room fell silent. Even Alina's smile faltered for a moment. When Sarah finished, the class applauded. For the first time in weeks, Sarah felt the weight lift, even if just slightly. She had spoken her truth, and people had listened. Her next step was reclaiming her passion, writing. Sarah began pouring her experiences into stories, raw and unfiltered. She wrote about trust, about love turned poison, about best friends who wore masks of loyalty but carried daggers behind their backs. Every word bled from her, but with each page, she felt lighter. One night, Hira, her cousin who had been quietly supporting her, read one of her drafts. "This is powerful, Sarah," Hira said, eyes wide. "You have to share this. People need to hear your story." At first, Sarah hesitated. The idea of exposing her pain felt terrifying. But then she remembered how Alina had used her silence against her, twisting the narrative until everyone believed. Lies. Maybe the only way to fight back was to tell her story in her own words. So she did. Sarah started a small blog, posting under the pseudonym Phoenix. Her first piece, "The Friend Who Stole My Reflection," gained traction almost overnight. Strangers commented about how they related, how they too had been betrayed by those closest to them. For the first time, Sarah didn't feel alone. Meanwhile, Alina was growing restless. At first, flaunting Ahmed had been enough. The attention, the gossip, the way people envied her, it fueled her. But as weeks passed, cracks began to show. Ahmed wasn't as devoted as she expected. He missed Sarah's calm presence, her kindness, her ability to listen without judgment. With Alina, everything was a performance, a constant demand for attention. One evening, as they sat in a cafe, Ahmed sighed. "You know, Alina, sometimes I wonder if we made a mistake." Alina froze, her grip on her coffee cup tightening. "A mistake? Are you serious?" Ahmed rubbed his forehead. "It's just, things were easier with Sarah. You wanted this, but I don't know if I did." Alina's smile cracked. For the first time, she realized she hadn't won Ahmed's heart. She had only stolen his body, and soon she would lose even that. Sarah's final test came when Alina confronted her again. It was after a seminar. Sarah was packing her books when Alina appeared, blocking her path. Her eyes, once smug, now burned with frustration. "You think you're so strong now, don't you?" Alina hissed. "With your little blog, your speeches, acting like you're above it all." Sarah met her gaze calmly. "I don't think I'm above anything, Alina. I'm just done letting you control the story." Alina scoffed. "Please, you're still the same pathetic girl who cried when I took Ahmed." "No," Sarah said softly but firmly. "I'm not. You didn't take Ahmed from me, you took him from yourself. You'll realize that soon enough." Alina's jaw tightened. For once, she had no witty comeback. Sarah walked away, her steps steady, her heart lighter than it had been in months. And then came the twist of fate Sarah never expected. Ahmed showed up at her door. It was late evening when she opened it to find him standing there. Looking exhausted, guilt etched into his face. "Sarah, please just hear me out," he begged. "Alina, she's not who I thought she was. I made a mistake. I should never have—" But Sarah raised her hand, stopping him. "Ahmed, she said quietly, you don't get to do this. You don't get to come back when you realize the grass wasn't greener. You broke me. And maybe one day I'll forgive you, but I'll never forget." His eyes glistened. "I still love you." Sarah shook her head. "Then you should have chosen me when it mattered." She closed the door, and for the first time, she didn't cry. Months later, Sarah stood at a local literary event, reading an excerpt from her blog that had gone viral. Her words had reached thousands of readers, inspiring others who had been betrayed to rise again. Publishers had noticed, and now she was on the path to turning her pain into a book. As she looked out at the audience, she spotted familiar faces, friends who had once doubted her but now clapped with pride. And in the corner, she saw Alina. Her once perfect hair looked dull, her makeup smudged. She sat alone, eyes hollow, no Ahmed by her side. For a moment, their eyes met. Alina looked away first. Sarah smiled, not out of cruelty, but out of freedom. She no longer needed revenge. Her success was enough, because in the end, betrayal hadn't destroyed her. It had rebuilt her. Epilogue Sarah's book, The Backstabbing Best Friend, was published a year later. It became a bestseller among young readers, hailed for its raw honesty and empowering message. When asked in an interview what she learned from her experience, Sarah smiled and answered, "I learned that betrayal doesn't mean the end of your story. Sometimes it's the beginning of the best chapter you'll ever write."